Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar series in Yeti. Uh, and this is a opportunity for us to discuss and talk about and share our um, outlook towards the payments related testing. And I'm quite happy to be moderating this talk with all of you experts here. And therefore, a wonderful good afternoon to Mr. Murli, Mr. Pawan, and Mr. Gopal. How are you doing?
All fine,
Yes, fine.
Satish.
Thank you.
Thanks for including.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this webinar series. And I'm sure our discussion today is something which is long due for us, and because it is already happening in front of our eyes, and payments that we are seeing are flowing digitally. And I think all the top 10 or top 20 fintech companies and the banks, they are doing 1 million transactions per day on a different services and solutions, end-to-end seamless. So to start this conversation, though I said in the beginning that I will be the moderator of this, but I will allow me to participate in your discussions as well, and give my inputs as well. So the first question that I would like to ask you basically is about how the open banking is transforming the global market, and how will it impact the payment structure. I would like to have it as like a clockwise. So, Mr. Murli, what are your views?
Yeah. So if you see that how the industry has evolved over the last 3 or 4 decades, it was a simple commodity of initiating payments in last 3 decades before, and the last 5 years or so, all the countries and all the regulators, they want all the customers to be having a additional customer experience, ease of use and all, they wanted to have it. So based on that, they have given a regulatory framework where customers will be able to use any of the approved or authenticated applications through which they can query their bank balance through any of the about the technical or applications. And apart from that, they can also initiate a payment transactions, and they can have a Amazon Pay kind of payment after selecting their whatever the goods they want to buy. So they ultimately the aim of this is convenience to the customers. And of course, regulators, they don't want to take a chance for this type of transactions for fraud and all, they should avoid. So they ensure that a consent is taken from the customer. The application provider has to take consent, and then they have to allow them restricted access to the extent of what the customer has given consent. So basically, this is a good thing happening. But the thing is, if you see that banks definitely are actually on the back foot based on this, I can say. If you see that all the technical service providers like Google Pay or aggregators and all, they are having a what I call a very convenient thing and all more conveniently pushed into market share there. But the banks, if they are such into the traditional payments and all, they are losing. This is my basic view on this. Of course, we have a lot of other things to do. So I think this is the thing. Based on that, we have to build the premises, I can say.
Thank you, Murli. Gopal, what is your take on this open banking? What I see around, especially the European countries and the Gulf regions, the open banking is like taking up the space in banking space by storm. What is your thinking about this?
Thanks, Sitesh. Sitesh just wanted to bring a little bit of a perception, little bit different. Normally, a customer means he is associated with a bank. His data resides with the bank. And the third parties or anybody else does not have access to that data unless the customer again goes and signs in or give all his details again with the third parties. So the idea of open banking is basically to make sure that the third parties are in a position to provide additional services, which normally they call it as account aggregation service or payment initiation service. These are the two services normally being thought about in the open banking arena. As a regulator, the regulator wants to make sure that the customer confidentiality and customer consent is maximum importance is given to the consent process, and the banks are expected to open up their customers' data to the third parties based on this consent process, and all parties abide by that consent. So this is little bit of a game change from our usual thought process of customer accessing his data. So just to give you an example is that if a customer has got accounts in 3 or 4 banks, today there is no way the customer can access all the 4 banks balances together in a single portal. So if XYZ company or a third party is willing to do that provision of that service, they just have to follow the steps in terms of making sure that the customer consent is obtained with each of the bank. And once the consent is obtained, the third party processor can independently query the customer's data directly from all the 4 banks and present it to the customer for his use. So this is what is, if you ask me, this is what is open banking. And this also got evolved in the European SEPA actually, where the players like Amazon Pay and other people, when they were initiating the payments, they were curtailed to accept the payment related detail like cards and the card numbers and other thing, go through a card network to get the authorization and payment settlements done. Now with this kind of idea of a payment initiation, Amazon will be doing a similar consent process with the customer, and the bank which is providing, which is part of the open banking, will also provide the needed details to Amazon Pay. Amazon Pay can initiate the payment, and once the payment is completed by the bank, they will inform Amazon Pay that payment has been credited. So this is what was initially thought about in the open banking, and it continues to be. And this is growing in countries after countries. Europe is, even though it is, it's not a single country, it is a multiple countries. So it goes to multiple, like basically it started off at UK or France, Germany, those kind of things. But it keeps growing country by country. And in terms of the Middle East, what we have seen is that this adoption is taking place in Saudi Arabia. It is in a very nascent stage, as we understand, because we don't know much of the details. And similarly, we keep hearing that this is also coming up in Bahrain. So This is what the knowledge. And I wouldn't say that others are not adopting. Others may be adopting, but they have not yet gone public to say that this is what we are doing.
Nice, nice. So it seems like that open banking is the current future. But I would like, Pawan, your views also on how this is shaping up and why this has become a force in the current banking scenario and where it leads from here.
Yeah, see, when it comes to open banking can be achieved, or why more banks are moving to open banking is because of the architectural changes that are happening in the core banking application. Okay. See, when we are moving to microservice architecture, we are trying to expose more number of APIs to the external world, through which more number of aggregators can connect to the core banking application and provide more services. Okay. Some of the impact of open banking on financial industry, it can enhance the customer experience, improve security. It can, we can look at new revenue streams, all along following the regulatory compliances, right? And also increased competition, because when you, with the introduction of this open banking, more third-party providers can enter into the financial market, leading to increased competition, right? At the same time, the customers will be benefited with lower costs and lower charges, and get more benefits out of this services. So some of the impact which the open banking can have on the financial industry.
Yes, that's an interesting point. One thing which is worrying from the point of bankers, because private players like Amazon Pay, Walmart, and all, they have a nimble payment structure, integrating and aggregators what they are playing well. But banks, they have their legacy systems where most of the payment initiation or processing is happening. Most of the banks, I can say, along with the core banking system, they have no way to amend the system or modify the system to put open banking or something. They have to again go back to the core banking vendor to change, which will take minimum 6 months to a year, where they will be losing out on the go-to-market competitions. So this is the worrying factor. So here itself again you have a challenge of testing the complete end-to-end functionality and the regression of the existing systems, where banks, even the Amazon Pay aggregators or the service providers, PSPs, they'll also be finding it challenging, because once a pilot is implemented, they have to go live with all these things. They also have to give a complete better customer experience, right? Apart from the adopting to regulatory compliance, otherwise they'll be fined. So these are all the challenges which we are forcing it, we can say. So the testing is an important part apart from the regression thing, where really some automation has to be put in place from beginning. It's not a luxury anymore. So they have to make it interesting. Any small changes, they have to adopt immediately and put it, accumulate or add it to the regression and all, so that automation will not take 6 or 7 days. It would be within 3 4 hours. So this kind of environment will be evolving faster. Already it has evolved, you can say. This is challenging. So the payment structure, if you say it should impact the existing architecture of the bank, and the testing, they have to give you a oriented, they have to reorientation towards automation. This is so the 1 or 2 points.
So I want to check. I want to check with Pawan about this open banking. It has not caught up in India, and despite it has not caught up in India, we are seeing a surge of digital payments through our different channels. UPI being the most popular one, which has caught everyone by surprise. Do you think a scope of open banking in India as well?
No, we do have open banking in India. So only piece what we don't have here is the consent management. Apart from that, open banking is there. Like customers can go to e-commerce websites and then do the payments, select the bank which they want, and then with a two-factor authentication, they can still achieve the what they want. So this is what is open banking. The terminology might be different, and only thing what we are still looking at is the consent management. That is what is missing. I think the government is taking initiatives to identify the aggregators and then give that piece of consent management to them.
Yeah, this is an interesting point, a perspective I can say. Even in fact, the other day, Paul Saran, we have discussed about it. So the interesting point is the open banking from the perspective of Europe is based on the payment service directive (PSD). And the UK, they have their own standards, which is adopted by few of the countries in Middle East. But India is treating its own path, we can say, where others like PSD or UK standards or Saudi Arabia and all, they want to have a regulated back open banking. India has chosen the, I think, market-based open banking. Maybe Gopal sir, you want to add anything on this?
No, what he said, Pavan said, is also true. This is also part of open banking only. But only thing is that as everybody says that it is more like UPI has defined the what is meant by the API banking or open banking. The concept of 4 players comes into place, like PSPs are there, and you are in a position to like basically in a Google Pay as a service provider or a uh, phone pay as a service provider, you can register multiple accounts. But only thing is that the choice of like showing all the balances to give them to as a customer is what is missing, because every time you need to access, you have to go through, I can say that itself is a consent processing, but this is a one-time consent processing to request for a balance inquiry or request for a payment. All those things require every time for the end user to input his PIN number, or what we call it as UPI PIN. So I agree with Pavan where he said that the consent management bit is missing. That is because the consent management stays for a longer period of time, so that you don't have to repeat that consent, getting the consent from the customer again and again. And surely I have not seen it except for a cred app, even I have not used it, where I hopefully think that if we can put together all the balances, all the accounts across multiple banks in a single portal, that's what is finally the dream of open banking. I think it will reach India also. The form and mechanism, we'll have to wait and see.
Oh, that's going on. That's going on. Very interesting. Pawan, you have opened a can of technological bombs here by saying that India is open banking compliant, and Gopal, you agreeing to it. I think the Open Banking Alliance should take a note of it, because in the recent report of open banking, India doesn't is not shown up as far as I remember. Anyway, I think to move ahead, I know there is another question which leads to my conversation. So, do you think the Indian financial institutions are equipped to adapt to the change and keep up with the pace? Because somehow its adoption, even in Europe, is quite slow. In Saudi, we have seen some timelines which are, I don't see quite a rapid movement happening in that. So do you think that there are banks and the financial institutions will be easy to open up their channels. It's not easy to open up our books or authentication, corridors. What is your view, Mr. Murli?
Yeah, that is one thing. If you say the open parlance of open banking as adopted by the Europe or Middle East or UK, that yardstick, if you say for India, I don't think this is a not correct comparison as of now. It is not an apple to apple comparison, we can say. But still, in Indian context, we can say that they have done. Indian banks are adept, and our regulators also they know the challenges of the bank, so they made everything flexible. And the NPCI it has come out with a lot, whatever the APS get for Indian context, and there are a lot of small players in the market who are actually assisting the banks because everybody knows that not all banks they have their own payment gateway and they have their own core banking systems and some payment processors and all. So with this available infrastructure, banks are just giving some plugins and all, which they are using it to make that happen. That is concerned, whatever way it is, UPI pin and all, it's told now. And then the execution of pull and all they are doing it. I think even Bharat Pay, Bill and all, everything, whatever the NPC has come out with some ingenious ideas for India, that is now working successfully, and the volumes also speak for themselves. So I don't think this is a major. If you see the apple and orange comparison, sorry, it will not work. So in the Indian context, it is sufficiently or successfully working. Now others are also wanted to make it. It's adopted. At least some of the African countries are there. I heard. So I think this is the way we have to go forward. Let it whatever the European or UK systems or the Middle East, let them go by that. But whatever the success stories of the NPCA and the UPI, it should evolve in the own way. Ultimately, the customer is the king. So long as it's happening, and banks are also able to successfully make it, that's fine. But there is one concern expressed by one of the ministers some 3 months back. Indian banks have not caught up with the advantages of they have not reaped the benefits of the UPI or the way Google Pay or Phone Pay and all they are doing it. This is the one aspect we need to consider, I think. Otherwise, everything should be fine as per my perspective.
Well, that's an interesting take. I would like to ask one, how while open banking takes us to the next level, and we see that in India has its own flavor, and Europe has its own flavor, and of course, in the world of payments, there would be different flavors in different geographies. How does it impact the traditional, conventional, the core banking softwares of which the banks are using today? Will do you see any architectural changes in the current core banking, or do you see that there will be a new offerings from these products that we know in the market, especially for the banks?
Of course, there will be an architectural changes in the core banking application, because if you want to move to say open banking or microservice based architectures, you definitely need to have changes in the application so that you can provide more number of services to the customers. Right? If you want to open an account, you don't have to go to any bank. Like what we used to do in the earlier days. We used to take a bunch of documents, a file saying that all these are the documents which I need to provide even before opening an account. But in today's world, you don't have to visit a branch doc. You just have an onboard application where you just upload your data, provide a photo, then you might have the online interview face to face with the bank user, and then start the process. So how are we achieving all these things? That is because of the architectural changes that the banks are adopting today, moving towards digitization of the core banking application.
That's nice. That's nice. Mr. Gopal, you have some question. Yeah, you have raised the hand as well.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell you, saying that if you see Europe open banking and other things, open banking is only for payment initiation. They don't participate into the actual payment processing. That is still left with SEPA, or the way it is left to the financial institutions, because there is clearly, in terms of things like liquidity management, funds need to be provided and so on. So they are still going on that rails in terms of the actual payment processing. But it is only the payment initiation where the customer is involved. Okay, they want to make sure that it is standardized, and the consent and other things are on top or before that. Once the payment is initiated, it still follows the SEPA rules or whatever it is for completing the payment transaction, and the end merchant or the beneficiary getting his money into his account, and the financial institution still has to make sure that the account is debited, funds are there, and other things. Okay, so it's basically the initiation part is taken uh, out into the open banking, and once it is initiated, the transactional portion still is within the bank's domain, and that continues to be in the bank's domain, and I don't think it is going to change in near future.
Yeah, I think this point, what Gopal sir is telling, I also view, and that is an interesting development the last weekend. Probably you might have seen the LinkedIn. So ISO 20022 is making live in the target 2 systems. Yes, they are already made live. That means this weekend it has been gone to production. Earlier they were using some legacy system. Now that it has gone to ISO 20022, probably I'm guessing. So once the target system is actually integrated with the banks, banks will definitely offer this whatever the settlement and all everything will go on a, at least a real time basis, or if not some hourly or some batch based. So once it is done, then banks will be able to give that what my guess or my feeling on this. Maybe time only will tell how it will happen. This one as such I feel that it may happen.
Nice, nice, nice. So now, while talking of all this, testing that's happening, there's lots of quality assurance that is happening around these payment systems, and I'm sure there are lots of automation also happening. Uh, so, do you think that the quality assurance of payment systems will support these changes? I mean, we have seen there are traditional fintechs, and then there are banks which are opening up. So I see a two different kind of streams being getting ready. One is the fintechs, which are doing, they're signing up people, and then they're offering different services through their platform. And then there are banks which are uh, right now on the digital journey, as well as now in the open banking. So how is there a way to differentiate, different kinds of automation for different streams, or one size fits all? What is your take, Pawan?
No, I don't think one size fits all works here, because we are talking about different type of payments, right? On we are talking about open banking. We are talking about payment systems which involves SWIFT and other SIPA related things, right? So definitely there is a need for quality assurance or testing of these applications even before we roll out to the production, right? Because we need to test multiple things here, because when you're talking about payments or open banking, we are trying to integrate multiple systems, right? So we need to make sure that that integration is in place. So we have to do the testing and then see these systems talk to each other seamlessly without any issues, even before they move into production. Right. So that is where the automation of testing of these applications is definitely required, and we definitely see a great potential for testing this in testing these applications.
Yeah, Mr. Gopal, your views, please.
No, the QA has to be there, irrespective of whether it is there is a change. Okay, be it a customer is going to get new applications. So customer experience is to be made sure that they are as per the, I wouldn't say standards, or as per the bank defined way it is being rendered. And even though I made a statement saying that it is only a payment initiation. So the payment initiation itself, like any other channel, you are having payment initiation through mobile banking, through internet banking, through branch. Okay. And same way, the open banking also is one mechanism through which the payment initiation is going to happen. So all this is actually defining at the end is through the APIs, these are expected to be consumed. So the payment initiation will be happening through APIs, which is called by the third parties. So if you look at it from the QA angle, you have to see, you have multiple layers which need to be checked from, say, service provider angle, bank angle, or you said that fintech companies. In my view, I am putting fintech companies either as an integrator for a bank, or they are the fintech providers for the Google Pay or those kind of apps. So at the end of it, the role of QA will still continue. And as you asked, and as Pavan rightly said, there is nothing like one size fits all. So basically, you will have the API testing coming in, that is in a greater thing, and then conforming to the regulations or standards. That checking itself is one of the activity of a QA. So that will continue.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's yeah. Thanks for this clarity, Mr. Murli. You have something to add?
Yeah, I think I agree fully with what Pawan. To add to that, we have to actually handle our like the fuel perspective. We need to go with some sandbox kind of thing provided by some technical service providers. And because of production, we cannot test it. So before going production, there will be a rigorous process of testing all the possible combinations and all. Because the challenge is that there will be a consumer of the API and there will be a user of the thing, right? Provider of the API. So there will be a two-pronged approach. The bank will expose their bank core banking or payment process. They will expose their services, which the service provider will consume. And again, whatever the third-party providers, they will consume the services that of that data exposed by the technical service provider. So for all these things, there will be a sandbox or something like that. So our testing process should be very rigorous to adopt to it. And of course, everything you cannot do it manually. Where we have to make it quickly adapt to that, and automation tools to be established with all possible combinations to be tested, because the window of testing will be very narrow. You cannot expect whatever the technical service provider or a payment service provider or AASPs, information and all, to open their thing for 6 days, 7 days, or no. They will give you a window of 3 hours, you have to do all this testing. So there, I think there will be definitely a need for automating everything from beginning. Maybe Pawan, you can correct me if I am wrong. So these are all the things we have to definitely take into account. We have to highlight it to the banks so that they can go for automation from day one. It's not a luxury for going to automation anymore. They have to be short on the dot, on the thing to start the automation from day one. This is my humble.
Yes, Pawan.
Yeah, I agree with Murli. I mean, automation is definitely required. because we are talking about transactions in single digits, right? When we talk about payments and open banking transactions, right? So to test that volume, I don't think no, we can use manual testing. So definitely there is a need for automation, and automation also can be scheduled based on the releases or the changes you are going to do to the system.
Well, I think we had an interesting discussion. Mr. Gopal, you were saying something else. You wanted to add some more?
No, nothing. Sitesh, as everybody is saying that the number of parties have increased. Whether all parties are coming together on one single time timing is also a bigger issue.
Right.
So in general, the bank may be ready with its API, but there may not be any third parties or app provider still who have latched on and meeting all the standards. So when it comes to QA, in general, we also have to depend on these third parties to come together so that this whole thing can be really tested. So I can only tell saying that from our previous experiences and other thing, we would have faced that issue before also. So if we have signed up with a financial institution, maybe we would have done the testing using API to check whether the payment initiation service is working or the account aggregation services through APIs are all working. Okay. But the front end user tool depends on the either the payment initiator or the account aggregator, which is more like an external app provider. So for that to be ready and other things, it's still we are seeing that there are multiple parties coming into play in these kind of scenarios. So I wouldn't say it is becoming complex, but if you see it is adding more players into the playing arena than previously you would have thought about.
I think while today every bank is offering a mobile banking experience, app experience, web application experience, as well as walking to the branch, that kind of an experience. There is a greater push in the form of digital form of banking as well. Now, having all of this in hand, it opens up. I would think that each of these channels of payments needs a different kind of skill set in terms of automation, in terms of the user experience that one the user is expecting or will be delighted with. But at the same time, I would like to understand as a company, Yeti, with its presence in so much of banks in India as well as outside of India. Do you think our Tenjin product variations, the folks of that product, are we ready to go out and talk about it as our capability? What do you think, Murli sir?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Of course, we are evolving whatever the capabilities of engine is actually greatly added in the past 2 years or so. That's because if you see the mobile banking, we can say, because the requirements are slightly different from what we are doing with the open banking APIs, right? Because if you see the mobile banking, you need to test different versions of a mobile or different versions of the same mobile with the different upgradations. Also, we have to go for the different combinations of the browsers and all. So I think we have our engine online where it will be able to handle all these things and very quickly any user testers will be able to do it without any much coding. So this way we can make it work with a shortest possible time frame. And if you see the whatever that engine enterprises or in that engine online, we can also use the API based testing, which we have already demonstrated. So by and large, we have the capabilities of doing, and if you still have that messages are sending, assume that we are saying ISO 20022 going for the whatever the PSD directives in the Europe scenario. That also will be able to test the validate that thing, verify the message and all. So that's an interesting thing we can do, and we are in the right time at the right place to do all these things. So that way, how we are cashing on the potential, this is something we have to see. Otherwise, that is my view on this.
Yeah, yeah, agreed, understood. So, Pawan, what happens to the physical cash? Is it going to vanish?
No, definitely it's going to vanish because even I don't see even cards going to exist no, for more than 5 years now because everyone is moving towards cashless banking. We are talking about e-rupee banking. Everything is happening now. Using a mobile, we are able to transact anywhere. People don't carry cash anymore.
Mr. Gopal, what do you? I mean, I think this is a great discussion that we had, and I think we will plan some more such discussions around different kinds of payments, digital payments, and like we did with open banking today. And I think it has been a great discussion, and we will take this forward, and we will focus on each major payments methodology and how we are capable of automating that methodology, as well as how it impacts the efficiency once we apply the automation. That's where we will focus. Any parting shots from you, Mr. Gopal, and other three participants before I let you go today?
I will take the first thing. What I am
Yeah.
seeing is that we, since we touched on AT and the QA, my thing is that we are not getting enough. I wouldn't say the like enough either leads or something which are going into the full-fledged open banking. Okay, so we are at least at a loss of what should be done with like how do we develop our tools to manage these things, because some of these things goes into conceptual things like consent management and other things. How in real world it happens, at least I lack that experience. Okay, who is holding that data, who is giving that consent, where is that consent information held, how they are making sure that it is shared between all parties, who can make changes to the consent, those kind of things. So I am at a loss when it comes to these kind of questions which keep on hitting me. But I think it will come out only when we get a real assignment in which we are participating.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, okay. Yeah, rightly said. Pawan, your views?
Views on can you repeat that question? Like last question, what you
So I'm saying that we will embark on this journey of more such webinars on picking up each and every methodology on payments. Today we touched upon open banking, and we just did a study and discussion around its implementation, usage, how fast, how slow it is. So the digital payments storm or the typhoon is not going to stop, and you say that cash will become completely invisible.
Yeah.
So how do you see we should take which more subjects in the coming weeks on our webinar series that this is, and we focus and talk about more automation related services.
Yeah, I think no, this is one of the good topics which we have picked up, like payments and open banking. Yes, and we need to do more research in terms of the market requirements, and then we should start, focusing on that.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Murli.
Yeah, I think, see, we are before going from open banking to other use cases, even in open banking, if you say Saudi, they have a lot of use cases under the open banking framework. For example, they wanted to have a credit risk assessment, tax filing, and enterprises financial management, and letter of guarantee issuance. So these are all the things they want to do through open banking. So, as rightly told by Pawan, we have to definitely invest more time how we'll be able to do it, because concern management is one part, but actual use cases where only banks will be reaping money, right? In the commissions and all. So there we have to do some more research and we have to put our front, because all the open banking APIs are available. There are like how we are doing it as a part of POC, going to the bank, yes, we have the capability. So I think this opens a lot of opportunities, not only for it is for others also. This is the one thing I think we may have to focus to get the maximum benefit. Also, we will give the customers the benefit of our advanced capabilities of automation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think
Thank
this was a
you.
wonderful conversation. And signing off from this webinar series on payments testing from Yeti Consulting, your choice leader in software testing and testing automation. Thanks all of you.
Thank you.
And we will see you
Thank you.
again in some interesting topic very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.